There we go. You trying to learn something, pretty girl? Yeah. There we go. All right, so let's talk about a cheat code that we can do, right, that other parents can do to establish what we'll say one step of generational wealth for their kids moving forward. We got to be aggressive with our savings and more aggressive with lowering expenses. You're going to have over 59 years of compounded interest that is growing and accruing every year tax-free.
That is Ross Mack, who provides retirement and investment advice on TikTok and is the creator of Revolt Maconomics. On today's installment of Retirement Ready, brought to you by Fidelity Investments, we take a look at how to think outside of the box when it comes to setting yourself or your children up for retirement success early on. But recent economic conditions have challenged Americans, according to Fidelity. The average balance in a 401k plan fell by more than 20% last year. Ross Mack joins us in studio now. Let's just get to the man himself. So we got to navigate the latest conditions here that have really kind of stirred up a different set of criteria or parameters for how someone can really get themselves into retirement planning here too.
Yeah, well, one, thank you guys for having me. And I think obviously the overall economic backdrop, the uncertainty obviously is rocking the overall stock market. And as a result, that's going to negatively impact people's retirements. Obviously, Fidelity reported yesterday saying it's down over 20%. But the reality is when you think about your retirement, this is your long-term savings account, effectively, that's compounding more aggressively. So the reality is if you're not in an imminent danger of actually necessarily needing this in the short term, there's no reason to actually touch it. So when I look at, a person saying, oh my God, what should I do with my 401k? Or what should I do with my Roth IRA? The short answer is absolutely nothing. Assuming, right, you made a very strong, diversified approach when it comes to allocating.
Ross, I gotta ask you, were those your kids in the video?
Yes.
They were so cute. I loved it. I could have watched that all day. Ross, let's talk about what people need to do, because I think a lot of people, when they think about retirement, they get overwhelmed very easily. They don't know the best ways to go about it. If you were to give maybe one piece of advice or a starting block to those out there, what would you tell them?
I would say one word: start, right? I think what happens is a person, they start saying, okay, I don't know what to allocate. Do I go with those 3 letters or these 3 letters, right? As an IRA, do I use my 401k? At the end of the day, when you really look at what you have, time is on your side. However, the younger you are, it's best to actually start. So a person that's in their 20s, if they start investing, putting a few $100s aside every month, in 40 years, they'll have well over $1 million, right? Assuming, a lot of other factors. But the idea is you have to start. And I think when it comes to retirement, you really have to say, I want to pay my future self, right? I want to be disciplined today in order to live a better tomorrow.
We just saw data come out from the New York Fed recently that showed that household debt is continuing to increase and actually surpassing some pre-pandemic record highs as well. And not all debt is bad debt. Of course, people who are paying down home debt, for instance. But you've also got the credit card consumption that's going up. So all that to say, at a time where people are looking across where they're taking on more debt, how can they continue to prioritize savings to make sure that they still do hit some of those retirement targets?
It's unfortunate, right? When you look at those statistics, it's obviously stemming from the fact that inflation is so rampant right now. The latest report, it doesn't look like it's slowing down at the pace we want. And so as a result, people are dipping to their savings, right? We've seen savings rates down, consumer debt much higher. But at the end of the day, when it comes to prioritizing, you have to continue to say, how can I live below my means? A lot of people sometimes live over, and some, when they're being good, they're living at their means. But I think living below their means, and how you do that, well, you start, what are the subscriptions that I can cut back on, right? If you are prioritizing saying, no matter what, I want to retire a millionaire, so therefore I need to be putting $250 or $300 or $400, whatever that number is that you can afford, but you have to look at it and say, you got to write it down. It's a budget, right? Everything starts with a budget, and when you're really saying, okay, I want to retire a millionaire, this is how much I need to invest on a monthly basis. Now I'm saying, what do I need to cut back in my life in order to make sure that that's one of the last things that I'm going to cut back on?
And Ross, one of your videos gets hundreds and thousands of views, and I know one of your missions is you want to help close that wealth gap. What have you done? And I guess, are we seeing any sort of progress in terms of some of the feedback that you're getting from your very avid watchers and listeners?
Yeah, when you really think about the systemic problems that, when we think about why there is a wealth gap, one of the things that I say, you can only control what you can control. And one of the things that I'm able to control is helping bridge the information gap, right? There's a huge exposure gap. And obviously financial literacy isn't taught in our schools, right? I learned a lot of stuff. I went to some great schools, but nonetheless, how many of the things are actually applicable, right? I want to know about retirement. I want to know about buying a home. I want to know about credit scores. And so what I do, I use my platform as a way to actually bridge that information gap. And what I'm doing is saying and obviously you showed some of the stuff, if I'm showing people in the world, I'm talking to my 2-year-old, I'm talking to my 1-year-old. And the reality is financial literacy is a language. And so therefore, the earlier you learn how to speak it, the kids will then, subconsciously start taking that in. And so when I think about my mission is saying, I want to help change a life every day, right? Through some new form of saying, oh, wow, maybe I should start investing. Oh, wow, this is how I improve my credit score.
Creator of Revolt, Maconomics, Ross Mac, joining us here on Yahoo Finance in studio. Thanks so much for taking the time, Ross.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure.